everybody, and welcome to another episode of Sunday Sit Downs, the show where anything goes and nothing gets left behind. As always, I am Steve, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome, and I am very, very excited today because I really want to talk about this very specific topic. I feel as someone who is not so familiar with it, but here's a great deal about it. I really want this to be a true learning experience for myself and for everybody else out there who might be as unfamiliar with it as I am. And to help me in regards to this topic is a very, very, very special friend of mine. This is an individual that has known me for quite a number of years. When I decided that I wanted to become a role model here for younger and newer community members, this was an individual that really took advantage of what I can do to assist others. We actually were lucky enough to meet each other at BookCon a few years back. It was my first time there, so it was a pleasure meeting this individual as well. And the topic today is going to be about the perception of the LGBTQ community through everything from mainstream media, popular culture, and the goal here is to learn and break a couple of stereotypes. So I couldn't have asked for a better guest. This is Alex from the channel Pucks and Paperbacks. Alex, good afternoon to you, and I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today on the show.
Hi.
Well, I just think that the best thing to do right now is to get right into the questions. And all that I am hoping for is, even though I am unfamiliar, I know that sometimes treading into these waters could lead to a couple of stumbling blocks, but I'm glad to have someone who actually knows me outside of YouTube as a friend to assist me with this very, very important and special video. So, as always, there are 7 questions. And I always like to begin at the beginning. So the first question that I want to ask you here, Alex, is can you give us an abridged version of your self-discovery in the LGBTQ community and your overall feelings as a person when it came to this journey that you have been having?
Okay. I will give the abridged version because it's been a long time. But if you do go over to my channel, I do talk like more in depth about it. But my name's Alex. My pronouns are he, him, and I identify as a trans guy. And I've been out for only a couple of months now. On my channel, I've been out since February maybe or January. I can't even remember when I did it. But I decided, well, not decided because this is not a decision, but I ended up feeling very different about myself, and I started feeling something that is called gender dysphoria, which is a feeling when your mind does not match your assigned birth. So I am female to male transgender, and I started feeling awkward when people would call me she, her, and I started just going to therapy for it and realizing that I'm a guy. And it's actually been a lot of emotions, and I've just been through a lot from it, but I think it's definitely made me who I am, and I just feel a little like like a weight has been lifted, and I just feel like myself. So
That's great. Well, as someone who was very honored, I mean, if there's one thing that I could say that makes this community, even though there's a great deal of drama and there are just days where us reasonable individuals want to pound our heads against the wall because of all the insaneness that is happening almost all the time in this community, we really can create some truly special relationships here. And I still think about it to this day. You actually reached out to me as one of the first people in the YouTube community telling me that you were officially starting to go down this journey. And I was very excited for you because talking to you as my friend, I definitely saw And it's not necessarily dealing with the stuff that you mentioned. You just seemed a little bit more on the negative ends because you were just dealing with a lot of different things on your plate. And when this decision that you made happened, I could tell from the DMs, from the voice, from the Skypes that we had, or Google Hangouts, whatever technology we used. I just sensed a little bit more positivity and a little bit more happiness. Like you said, you felt that a weight was lifted off your shoulder. And for myself, I will give everybody a little bit of insight. I didn't really know anybody who was a member of the LGBTQ community. I grew up in a predominantly Orthodox Jewish environment, and even though the main monotheistic religions these days are welcoming these community members a lot more now, there was a time when these were things that we just didn't think about. We didn't want to talk about them, and the exposure was through things like the news and television and stuff like that. So I didn't really know anybody who was gay or lesbian or bi or trans. I didn't know anybody. But when YouTube came into my life and I got to really see all different kinds of cultures, this community was a group of people that I finally started to get to know, start to get to understand. And there's no fear. They're just average people like you and me. And that's one of the few things that some people out there still don't seem to understand, or maybe they just don't want to understand. But knowing that I have friends like Alex and many others in the community, I feel very happy that they are now a part of my life, because I feel very much more complete, if you will. I feel that it's good to have a better understanding of so many different kinds of people outside of yourself. So the second question that I want to discuss with you is, when you were going into this journey, what were some of the pop culture elements that helped you feel a little bit more comfortable and confident based on the decisions that you made? Because everybody's got role models one way or another. And whether it's people that we know personally or people that we actually look at that are iconic outside of our own comfort zones, who were some of those voices? And they don't necessarily have to be celebrities. They could be anything from politicians to fellow YouTube stars. Who were some of those people that really gave you more assurances of yourself and more confidence?
Okay, well, I'm gonna say that there's no like celebrities or anything because unfortunately like there's very much a lack of that for trans people. I could only think of like um Chaz uh I can't even remember what his last name is, but he's on like American Horror Story. I know he's a trans guy, but like when I think of like people in the media that are trans, I don't really think of one. And that's what sucks, is that I don't even have anyone that can be a role model for that. Like me going to the movies to watch someone because they're trans, like, or me being like, oh, I'm like this trans actor or something, but I don't really know many. So that sucks. But for me, YouTube has been the best platform for me to figure things out. Like, there are so many YouTubers that are trans guys. There's Calvin Guerra. He's very good at just talking about his experience. Like, he's talked about how going on testosterone is a really big thing, and how it's not going to just like cure you, and it's just going to be a really hard thing to go through. And I never knew what he meant until I started that happening, and like I I totally understand it now. And he was just one person that like he makes a lot of trans videos that are educational, but he also does a lot of drama videos, which is problematic in my opinion, just because I go to his channel for education. There's also Cam Russo, who I really like because he's not just like a masculine trans guy, he's like sensitive and stuff. And so even being trans, differentiate like my masculinity and my femininity because I'm just like, oh, I'm masculine. So singing him kind of like made me feel a lot better. And he also has this similar situation to mine, which I'm not going to really talk about, but I could relate to him on that level. But those guys are kind of the only like people that I know. There's also Chase Ross who does a lot of educational videos, but YouTube is the best platform to go to if you're just trying to figure that out. There's also like therapists that post videos where it's like, oh, well, here are all these questions that if you think you're transgender, watch this video and it'll tell like it was just a list of questions that's like, do you feel like this, do you feel uncomfortable when you get called a girl? And I could say yes to every single question, and then I would still just be like, oh, that's not enough. But that's just a process of questioning things, and then just one day I was just like, ta-da, like it just clicked. So those are some. It just sucks that there's like not a lot of trans representation.
Well, to a certain degree, the reason why there is not much trans representation in the mainstream media is, I mean, based on what I listen to and what I hear, it's always going back to things like statistics because of the fact that it's such a small population of the human race. The people who are in those big offices in the corners of all those big Hollywood companies, et cetera, they feel that because it's such a small grouping, maybe we don't need to expose so many people. But again, that's not me. That's not what I'm saying. This is just what I hear based on things that I read in the news. And quite frankly, who really trusts the news anymore? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm actually very happy with your answer because I would agree with you based on some of my own personal experiences. I think that YouTube is one of the best places to be when it comes to anything that you are questioning or anything that you want to learn, because there are so many genuine voices there. And genuine voices are so relatable and real. It's
Yeah.
like when I sit down and review a movie, I give my own perspective and I give everybody a great show. People love it when I talk about movies and music and popular culture and give my spin on it. But people love it when I do a live stream like this, or when I give each people an update based on what's been going on with my life. Why? Because I am raw, I'm unfiltered, I am giving you my absolute real self. Because I'm just talking to the camera and I'm just talking about regular things that everybody goes through every day. And if there's something that someone is not going through, like I didn't post this just yet, but I talked to you about this off camera. I'm posting my new monthly update. And I'm going to be discussing in that update how I've been dealing with my case of tendonitis in both of my knees. It's a common thing that happens to people, but it's not something that actually affects people, but it has been in my life. And I have consulted professionals about it, and I'm going to talk about what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
You actually found voices in the trans community that have talked about these specific things, but at the same time, I'm certain that you've also just found some trans people in the community that just review books or just talk about fun stuff, because that's the best part. That's another thing. It's like, a person who is trans making YouTube content doesn't necessarily have to just talk about transgenderism. Is that the right way to phrase it? Transgenderism? Is that a
You
right
just say
thing?
like trans issues or like the
Oh, okay. Okay,
transgender.
I wasn't sure, but either way,
I mean, I've
trans
never
issues.
heard that term, but
Okay, I've heard that. That's why I said it. But
okay.
transgender
Cool.
issues, as you said, they don't necessarily want to talk about that. They just want to talk about average stuff. And that's the beauty of YouTube, because you can be whoever you want and talk about whatever you want.
Yeah. Well, that's why it was like a thing, like me having a channel. It's like did I really need to post a coming out video? Probably not, because I could have just been like, hey, this is my name now, I'm trans, whatever. But it was more personal for me to make a coming out video because that's just how I connect with my audience. And it was amazing because there were so many people that I didn't even know that were subscribed to me that commented. They're like, oh, I really relate to this. I'm trans or I'm gender not conforming. And I was like, wow, like I didn't even know. Like I didn't know that anyone in booktube actually existed. And people were just like, wow, I'm so glad that there's actually a trans booktuber, because for so long people would be like, who are trans booktubers? I don't know any. But I would be in like the closet, so I'd just be like, can't tell you any, it's me, but I can't tell you that. So just being able to like see the people like really related to it just made me feel better about posting
Hey, look, I'll give you an example. There was a video that was made by a very popular booktuber very, very recently. Rhiannon from Crescent Moon Reads. She made a video about how she wanted to start exploring her Jewish roots because there is Judaism in her family heritage. And I was like, oh, well, that's something I didn't know about you. I come from a Jewish background. Do you need any things you want answered? Because I could definitely give you some ideas and things that I have learned, because as a member of that community, I could definitely share a great deal of knowledge that I've learned over the whole, practically my entire life. So I definitely see what you're saying. It's a different perspective, but that's what I said. That's the beauty of YouTube, because when you know something about somebody else, it opens up a whole new conversation with the other.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, so now let's get into the main focus of what we really want to start covering, because I did actually see some comments there, and there was a great comment here from Bailey's Book Babble talking about the lack of trans voices in the industry, and that is going to lead right into the third question, and that is my question about the actual entertainment industry and the LGBT community. Do you feel that this community is truly being heard by influential voices in these areas? Or do you feel that when a major celebrity or a major movie company just basically gets up and says, we are 100% supportive of the LGBTQ community, like, do they really mean what they're saying, or are they just trying to save themselves from possibly getting attacked? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I have a lot of problems because the thing is that people use media to educate themselves. So if they're going to watch something and they just see, like, for example, like we know Caitlyn Jenner because like she has a lot of money, she is like famous, and that's like stuff that people just know because they're like, oh well, she's transgender, that's all what transgender people like things are, like that's the only representation I have. But not all trans people, not all trans people are like that. Not all trans people transition because of so many different like reasons, like financially, just maybe like it's just not for them, because you don't have to be trans to transition. Like it could be like numerous things, like it might just be unsafe, like they might just not have insurance, like it's a lot. And seeing Caitlyn Jenner, like it's like, oh well, all trans people transition, like this is that, and it's like we need more representation. Like I really like Jazz Jennings, who is on TLC. She's
Mm-hmm.
one of like the trans people that I first like saw in the media, and I just was so hooked to like watching her show just because it was so interesting to me. And this was even before I even like knew I was trans, which is like such a sign if I'm like really like into it. But she was just so interesting to me, and I'm like, me as like probably like a teenager, like that was my representation of a trans person. But I like her show because she goes through everything. It tackles like her going through all of her surgeries and everything, and just like the actual hardships of being trans, rather than us just seeing like Caitlyn Jenner and being like, oh, that's a trans person. Like, no, there's so many different trans people that like the media needs to cover it in a way that like everyone is represented, which I really like. I mean, we're kind of doing okay. Like, there's this show, I think it's called Vice or something. I did like I did a paper on it, but it's like about drag queens or something. And
Oh,
most
I know what that is.
is it called Vice or
No,
something?
it's not called Vice. It's
That
called
starts with a
something
V.
else. Yes, you're absolutely right. I know exactly what you're referring to.
Yeah, well, that has like all trans actors,
Mm-hmm.
and like that's amazing because that's just like that's good to have that representation, even if the characters in the show aren't trans. Like at least we are open to like more trans people in the media, even if they're not like representing
Was the
like a
show
character.
that you're? It might actually not be called Vice. Is the show Pose?
Yes, that's
That's
what
what
I
it
meant.
is. It's
I don't
Pose.
even know
Yes.
how I got the Vice. I don't know.
You probably saw way too many advertisements of the Dick Cheney movie recently.
Well, I did a paper on it, so maybe I should just get an F on that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Pose is the show. But no, I mean, I agree with you 100% because there were a couple of things when I was really starting to hear a little bit more about the LGBTQ community and a lot of the controversies. One of the things that there were two specific things that made me very upset. And it was when the live action Beauty and the Beast was announced and the recent incarnation of the Power Rangers on film was announced, where the companies that were giving us these films, so I believe it was Disney and 20th Century Fox, how they basically got up on their soapboxes and said, hey, everybody, come see our movie because we have a gay character in our film. And when the movie actually hit theaters, everybody was in an uproar because they said, well, okay, you really didn't give us the gay representation to the degree we were anticipating. I just don't think that you need to prepare an audience for the fact that there is a member of this community in a film or in a television show. You just let them watch the show, you know?
Yeah, I think only like unless it's like about like unless it's like own voices representation, it's like, oh, here's like an LGBT film, and here are two people from the community that are in the film. Like that's cool, but like in like you want to be represented, so like I understand like getting angry about it because it's like you fight so hard to get representation, and then it's just like, okay, well, great, like now we have to like now we're upset.
I mean, look at the very popular show Shameless. Look at how much representation is in that show. And nobody was told, "Hey, we're going to have all this." No, they just let the show air and they let the episodes unfold. Nobody had
Exactly.
any issues with that.
And like the show that I like really advocate for is One Day at a Time, and it's like the reboot of it on Netflix that recently got canceled.
Yeah. Netflix is having an issue with a lot of shows though.
Yeah. But it's like that show has a gay character and also has like a gender non-conforming, and they go by they them, and that's so rare to have, but they didn't market it like that. They were just like, here's our reboot, like, and then posted like the trailer of like the girl coming out and stuff, and then like there's a little clip of that, but they weren't just like that, like, oh, come see, you need to see this because of that. But that's why I'm so angry that they're canceling it, because it's like for the first time we have a lot of representation, and it's not just like the sole focus is LGBT stuff. It's like mental health, it's immigration, it's addiction, it's just like so many great things into one. And just it just makes me so angry that it's actually getting canceled, and Netflix is trying to say like, oh well, this is a Netflix original, so nobody else can take it from us. And I'm just like okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel that if the representation is in the media, there's nothing wrong with that. But I also don't feel that if there is no representation in a specific show, nobody should be criticized for that. People should just be allowed to make what they want to make in their own special way. And that's just the way that I feel, because if one show doesn't have a ton of representation, it doesn't mean that 10 other shows that are airing in a couple of days afterwards are not going to have any representation. So we're living in such a great time right now in entertainment where we can basically just make so many different kinds of things in so many different ways. You know what I mean?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So the next question that I have for you is an interesting one. Do you feel that, once again, we're going to elaborate a little bit more on this. Do you feel that the representation is genuine? Or do you feel that some people are using something like the fact that LGBT, like I'm an LGBT person, and they're just using it for the sake of a couple of things that some people do not agree with? Let's tackle it, everybody. Let's talk about Jussie Smollett.
Yeah, right.
This is a gentleman who is an openly gay man. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, I remember Jussie Smollett from the very first Mighty Ducks film. Not that many people remember that.
Yeah, I didn't know.
A lot of people don't remember the fact that his sister played Michelle's friend in the original Full House, and she's actually going to be in a DC movie in a couple of years. She's going to be in Birds of Prey, and she's going to be Black Canary, which is pretty cool. But the point that I'm making here is this guy did a very, very bizarre thing. But he used the fact that he was Black and that he was gay to try and get a free pass. Now, as the devil incarnate in mainstream media these days, a cis white male, I personally felt horrible for those specific communities because I felt that they were doing them, that he did a massive disservice to them. He didn't help them at all. He hurt them. That's the way I felt.
Yeah. Like the way that whole situation, like it's just the way that people, like in general, because of social media and especially Twitter, everyone is so sensitive about everything that
Yeah.
it's like you can't, like, sorry, you can't just pull you can't really pull that card unless that like actually happened. But that whole thing is just crazy to me. That, but at the same time, it's like, okay, well, great. Now, what about when gay people actually do get attacked? And like, what are they gonna do now?
Yes.
Because they already stuff that happens and like nobody cares about it. Like even like there's so many trans women that get killed all the time and like they get abused and like no one like people should be taking this situation and like putting it out there like, okay, well, we know this happened, so why don't we donate to like LGBT organizations, and why don't we like be better about being like allies and stuff and being able to report when this stuff does actually happen, because now this guy just like screwed it for everybody else, but maybe we can like make it better. I don't know.
Well, one of the few things that I always say, which is, I know that this was a bad thing for the community, but to a certain degree, and please hear me out, everybody, I'm glad that it happened because I have been angry with celebrities and Hollywood for a very, very long time now. Because when it comes to important things, particularly things like politics, minority, LGBTQ rights, anti Semitism, these are the last people that we need to listen to because they live in a completely different world. Do we have to tackle what just happened with Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin and a whole bunch of other people? This was something that was even more important. This and Jussie Smollett, these two things happening back to back, pretty much said to the world, Hollywood and celebrities are not on your side It doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, a conservative or a liberal. These people are not us. They are not the blue collar, the upper middle class, the white collar working class people. They're not us. They are completely different. They're a cut above all of us, whether you want to agree with it or not. And the fact that these things have now officially unfolded, I am glad to just say, stop listening to these people and start talking to the actual people. You want to learn about Judaism? Go actually speak to a Jewish person that you know. You want to learn about transgender rights and stuff like that? Talk to someone who you might actually know. YouTube is a place where you can find all of those people, and they're real people.
Yeah. The media, like, they don't, it's annoying because it's like, oh, well, this is a celebrity, but it's like, why do we need to shine light on them when in reality, like, we should be actually talking about, like, real issues where, like, trans or, like, LGBT people are actually getting, like, attacked, or maybe, like, LGBT people that are getting kicked out of schools and, like, being, like, treated unfairly at schools, rather than talk about how these celebrities are going to jail now because they, like, donated money to the school.
And on top of that, I wanted to also say this. Why do we also have to just focus on the bad? Why don't we actually invite someone who happens to be a member of the community that was the starter of a soon, like, now Fortune 500 company? You know, because success stories are there too, because we also have to try and get out of this whole victim mentality, because that's just not the way to live life. I mean, look, I don't want to put myself up on the victim totem pole here, but if you know your history, the Jewish community is the most persecuted group of people since the dawn of time. And yet myself and so many people, they don't act like victims. They just keep living life and they keep doing everything that they can. Everybody has an opportunity to, not everybody has the ability to succeed in it, but everybody has the ability to better themselves. It takes a lot of work. It takes a great deal of effort, and it really is you who has to make it happen. You can't rely on everybody else out there, because not everybody is going to come through it for you. And you can truly be a very successful person regardless of who you are and what you look like. You and I talked for a while before we went live. You are going to be very successful at what you do. You know the ropes. You have such a fire in your belly to be successful and be a great member of society. Alex, it's going to happen for you if you keep that attitude.
Yes, it is.
And believe me, Hollywood is not going to care if you do it or not.
No.
But anyway, before we get into the next series of questions, and by the way, this has been such an enlightening conversation. I really hope that all of you who have been watching have been appreciative. I've seen the comment section very much exploding. It's wonderful. And there's so many recommendations being put into the box right now in terms of representation in film and television, which is great. But because of the fact that we have reached the halfway point, just remember that this video will be taken down later today, so I can add an intro and an outro. And it will go back up the 25th of March, which is tomorrow, Monday at 7 a.m. That is when they always come back up. And I'm really excited that people who have not gotten a chance to see it live will come and check out the show when it is officially up for all the world to see. So anyway, let's get back into the questions. And this is probably the hardest question that I had to word, because I want to make sure that I got it right. So I'm going to try it one more time and maybe eliminate this whole jumble of words that I've got over here. How do you feel about people outside of the LGBTQ community just being neutral? Meaning that they have no issue with the fact that there is a community like this in the world, but they're not going to be a voice. They just want to focus on their own individual lives put food on the table for their families, make sure that bills are paid, and they're not going to go to an activist meeting or a gay pride parade or an LGBTQ event. But it's not that they are against you. I don't appreciate when people say that if you are neutral in regards to important matters, you are no better than people who are against us. I highly disagree with that statement, but I want to know how you feel about that.
See, my perspective is that I don't need, I'm very like independent, and like to me, I don't care if you don't have to accept me. I really don't care. Like it's very like this is who I am. I'm gonna live my life how I am, and I don't really care who accepts me or not. Like I just don't care. Like, but to be an ally, like if you still are like you can be an ally without going to Pride, without like having a rainbow flag or anything. But I think like when people like have children and stuff, they should be able to just like address these things and just be like, oh, like even if like a kid like goes to school and like their friend has like two dads or two moms or like anything like that, the parents should be able to say like, oh well yeah, like they're gay or they're like whatever they are, and like be able to have like an educational moment rather than like just be like, oh well, like just be mean about it. Like I don't know, like I'm more like if you're not going to be mean about it, then I don't like care. But also like I don't know, like as much as like I am an advocate, I don't like, I mean, personally being trans is not something that I enjoy. Like there's many trans people that love being trans and they're like, "Oh, well this like made my if I weren't trans, this wouldn't happen, or like I wouldn't have met these people." But to me, because it hasn't been a good time for me, I don't really have like a good thing going. So I'm like, oh, well, I don't like it. So I don't like want to have to like always talk about it. So I'm not one, like, I don't know. Like, I feel like once I have transitioned, I wouldn't be like the biggest part of the community just because like I want to live my life as a guy and like that's it. Like I don't want to have to be really associated with it. There are many people that are, but like that's fine for them, but like I'm not really like that. So I don't really care. I just like don't really care who does, but at the same time I do still have to like remember that I am trans and like there are issues going around where like I could not have rights, I could not have insurance, like there's certain things that could happen. So just that you're like not mean about it, then I don't really care, but like not everyone has to like be up in arms like, oh yeah, but also like if there's something happening where it's like, oh well, trans people are getting kicked out of the military, like you should at least be able to be like, okay, this is like a problem that we need, like this sucks that this is happening, but you don't have to like go to Pride or anything. Like to me, Pride isn't really that fun. It's just like a parade. So if you've ever been to a parade, parades are horrible because I hated it. I hated it so much because it was so crowded that we had like this much room and people were still trying to get by me. And it's just like, I just don't like it. Like I can advocate in a different way.
No, I mean, it's like I see the settings in your room, and I see the pride flag on one side, but then I see the Flyers poster on another. So of course, the first thing that we're going to discuss is the hockey stuff because you're a big hockey fan. I love hockey, so that's definitely going to be the topic of conversation. But the pride flag, it's like, okay, here's a community member. Nice to know you. Glad you're here. Let's go back to just having a great conversation. We don't have to, it doesn't have to be the main focus. And that's another thing that I know that it's a little bit strange to discuss, but it's like some of the ways that some people believe that the community will be accepted if we keep putting more and more of it into the mainstream. Now, there's nothing wrong with it being in the mainstream, but sometimes if you just put it in a book or you put it in a movie or you put it in a television show just to check off your proverbial PC box and not give it any depth or meaning, I don't think that that helps.
Well, it's like you only like because I'm a media and production major, so I learn a lot about representation. And I actually took like a class that's called like representation and cultural differences or something like that. And we learned about representation only gets to be on the screen unless we have writers that are in the LGBT community or like have or like are just like diverse or anything. So you're only going to get representation if you have those people on your board, but it's very rare to have those kind of people because just people, I don't know, like in any job, like you're good or bad. So or you're hired because you know somebody. So it's like we only get representation if there's someone that's on the board that is actually writing it in.
No, it's just like I don't have any. I mean, a perfect example would be what happened with Sarah J. Maas. Like, she got such criticism because her court series didn't have any representation. And then in the third book, she put all this representation in it, and she still got criticized for it. Look at what's happening right now with J.K. Rowling, how she's trying to put all of this additional information out there. Now, in her defense, I will blame the fandom for that, because when the Deathly Hallows was done, people were basically wringing her neck for more. Well, guess what? You're getting more now and you're not happy. It just goes back to the conversation that we had earlier today about how you just can't seem to satisfy people.
Yeah. It's just like even like going back to this question, it's like everyone is just so sensitive that it's like I'm kind of afraid about like what is gonna be happening in like the next few years because it's just everyone is so sensitive with everything, and it's like even like trans stuff, it's like apparently people are trying like this just it bothers me so much that people are trying to get a law for like people to get I don't even know like if it's like banned or like get like fined or like arrested or something if they like misgender somebody. And it's just like
Yeah.
I like obviously it's a part like that of me that I have to deal with, but I can't just get mad at somebody for like not like just for misgendering me. That's not their fault. And maybe I'm just not direct or something, but if someone misgenders me, it's not the end of the world and I'm not going to be up in arms or anything. Like there's like this video of this woman in FYE and she's like getting so angry because the person at the desk, like the cashier, he misgendered her and she just starts throwing stuff and
Yep.
like having like, a big like crazy like she's just freaking out and it's like that's not his fault for misgendering you. That is not his fault. You could
No.
just if it really bothers you, you can just be like, oh sorry, my pronouns are she her, and then move on with the day. Or even if they don't, then that's like whatever. Like you can't really have a big like it's not a big deal. Like you can't just freak out about that. Like that could be like this situation could probably be in like anything, but it's just people are so sensitive. It's like if somebody misgenders me, I just deal with it. I just be like, oh,
Yeah.
whatever. I already know, like, whatever.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's like when, yeah, it's kind of funny how that is actually, as you said, that law, there is actually a law in Canada now that if you use the wrong pronouns for someone, you will be reprimanded by the law. Like you will have to deal with the law, which is kind of scary because it really is regulating speech. I mean, Bill Maher, who is one of the most liberal people in all of media, because people basically say that if you misgender somebody, you know that you misgendered that person, so you're basically advocating hate speech. And this whole thing with how hate speech is not protected by the Constitution. Bill Maher was the one that said, "Yes, it is. I hate to be honest with you. It's the threats that are not protected by the Constitution." But yes, you can say something to make someone else feel bad, and nothing is going to happen to that person. It's part of the reason why I'm sort of happy about the executive order that was just passed here allowing for free speech on college campuses, because that's something that has to be done. People need to understand, especially young people, the world is not butterflies and unicorns. It is unfiltered, it is raw, and it is going to hurt. It was Eric Matthews from Boy Meets World who said to Corey, "Life's hard, get a helmet."
Yep.
So let's get into the next question, and this goes to actual representation of the LGBTQ community in film, television, etc. Does that representation have to be filled by an exact member of that community, or if the actor actually just can act, is that something that's okay? Because we have to take a couple of names here. I have a few names that I've written down here who are actually members of the LGBT community who have actually played straight people. Neil Patrick Harris played Barney in How I Met Your Mother. In the wonderful show on Netflix, Grace and Frankie, Lily Tomlin, who is a proud gay woman, played a straight woman, while Sam Waterston and Martin Sheen, who are two straight men, played a gay couple. We also had Will and Grace, which was a show that really broke the barriers. And even if it's not just that, Seinfeld had an episode where George and Jerry were thought to be gay. And even though they denied it, they said that there was nothing wrong with being gay. That show episode won a GLAAD award. And now Seinfeld is looked at as an unsafe thing for the LGBT community. The point that I'm making is there anything wrong with these kinds of things happening? Or does it have to be done, or do these roles and these things have to be portrayed by members of the community itself?
See, that whole thing about like this, like, oh well, look at these like gay people playing straight people is, I feel like that's like an argument that nobody brings up when they're like freaking out about like, oh well, this person is like playing, like if like a straight person is playing a gay person, or like like if there's just like some thing like that, I feel like no one ever brings that up because there's like, oh well, we're going to attack this person, like victim blaming of like, oh they did bad. But at the same time, it's like I said before, like representation only happens if those people are like on the writing board, or honestly like it depends on what they're looking for. Like yes, if like it just depends on what they're looking for and how they want to put like the movie or the TV show out there. Like I said with Poise or Pose,
Pose.
Pose. Like I said with that, like there are like trans women that are playing like just playing like regular people. They're not playing a trans person, and like that's fine. Like I just think, like I said before, it's like everybody is just always so sensitive about everything. And like I understand it, because like I said before, I would love great representation where I could sit down and like show somebody that doesn't know much about trans stuff and be able to watch a movie that like helps you. Like, oh, for instance, there's, because I did a paper on this where I compared Pose and this movie called Three Generations. Three Generations is about a trans guy played by Elle Fanning, who is a cis woman.
Yes.
And and so many people say, oh, well, the representation is so bad. As a trans guy, I could relate to that movie a lot. And if I can relate to the movie, then fine with me.
Yeah.
Like, I just understand how hard it is to actually get a trans actor. Maybe it's because of the time the time period that the movie was developed. Like, I don't think that it really matters that much. Like, I like that movie for the representation, and like Elle Fanning just got so much hate for it, and it's just like that's not her fault. Like, if we need representation, like, at least we're starting, unless, like, it's not like we just made, like, a bad trans movie about a trans person getting beat up. Like, this is all about them going through a transition and having to, like, get papers signed and, like, the actuality of it, rather than, like, oh, here's, like, a film with, like, a trans person, da da da. Like, at least we have a thing where I can be like, hey, like, if you want to know about trans stuff, watch this movie. It'll help you maybe understand how we feel.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that last year there was a whole situation with Scarlett Johansson, how she had a movie role where she was going to be playing a trans person who went from female to male. And because of the fact that that role was not being filled by an actual trans actor, everybody got up in arms and said that she was basically ostracized for this, to the point where she actually quit the movie. So
She did a
now the problem is, now there's a very good chance that this movie will never get out the gates, because there's nothing wrong with having a trans actor, but the most important thing is, can this person act, and will this person fill the seats? Because that's what the film industry and the entertainment industry needs. They want to get those seats filled. So the fact that they were willing to use a cis woman to play this character for the sake of getting the name out there, getting the story out there. I mean, nobody complained about the Danish Girl, and Eddie Redmayne played that character. And you're absolutely right. People are so sensitive. And how do you also feel about when a wackadoo basically says this film or this television show is not gay enough? You know, it's more, they don't want to just have people who claim to be gay or lesbian or transgender in this film, but if there's literally at this point in time not an actual sex scene and penetration, it's not gay enough. I think that that's a little bit out of control.
I have never even heard of that, but like,
Yeah, I hear weird things. I go into those dark corners of the internet, which very, very few fear to tread.
but the thing is like, there's so many films and movies that, like, if you want something that's like super gay, go watch Queer Eye. That's super gay. Like, very flamboyant, like, very, very gay. But if you just want like a chill movie, like, watch Love, Simon. That's not like super gay. It's like a nice comedy, like, light-heart movie that you can watch with anyone, and it just happens to have a gay character and coming out. And it's like, there are so many movies you can watch if you want something, because that thing is called genre. If you
Yes,
ever heard of it. Genre
absolutely.
category, like, it just, you I don't get like the mentality of like pushing it on people. Like, I don't know, but it might just be myself personally, where I'm just like, I don't want to like shoot this to the rooftops and be like, oh, I'm transgender,
Well,
whoa,
I'll
like, I'm
tell you the
not.
God's honest truth, my friend. You are the majority. You may not know that, because the problem is, regardless of whether it's these group of people in this said community or another said community, the squeaky wheel always gets the grease.
Yeah.
I still think the most hilarious thing is all those people out there that are advocating for everything from minority rights of all different kinds are all spoiled, white, pasty skinned kids that basically have nothing better to do with their lives. And it makes me upset, because I feel that they do more of a disservice than an actual service to these communities. They don't know these communities. They're just advocating for them because they know that, because they either think that it's the right thing to do, they either feel that if I don't do it, I'm going to get crucified. You know, it's so weird, this world that we're living in right now. The groups need to speak for themselves. You know, that's what it really needs to be. And when the group does speak for itself, regardless of who it is,
Yeah.
people will listen, because at least they'll know that the voices are truly genuine. Like, I would listen to you over someone like Caitlyn Jenner any day of the week. I truly would. Because I know you're more real. You're someone that I would understand a lot more, because Caitlyn Jenner may be transgender, but Caitlyn Jenner also has an ass ton of money. and has a much different life than an average American citizen like yourself. You know what I mean?
Nobody transitions as quick as she did. Like, you can't. Like, I don't even know how she did that because it is impossible. For me, I would have to wait 6 months to a year to get top surgery. And top surgery is, with insurance, $3,000. Without insurance, $9,000. And it's just like, it baffles me because it's like she has so much money and she says that like she is an advocate and shit. And then like she like why don't you help the community then? Like what if like why don't you find a GoFundMe or something that like people were like a trans guy is trying to get top surgery or something, like she
Yeah.
like doesn't do her job like with all of her money. It's like you could do so much for people and like she just doesn't do it.
Right. And so the last question, I really wish that we could talk longer, but we have such a small amount of time. So the last question that I want to ask you is a very personal one. It's obvious that while there's so much more knowledge and so many that want to gain an understanding of the community that you are a part of, how do you feel about the fact that there are pretty much in our lifetime, there's always going to be people that will never accept you? Will that prevent you from truly being the best that you possibly can be, not as a member of the transgender community, but just as a human being in general? Do you feel that it's going to put up roadblocks? Is it going to shatter your confidence? Or are you just going to say, you know what, it's my life and nobody else's, I'm just going to keep going?
I mean, it might, because obviously it's going to be a lot of like obstacles already, like, and but at the end of the day, it's like this isn't something like this is not something that I've decided at all. Like I don't know why anyone would decide it at all, because it's like it's just so much, like I've already said, like, and it's just like, I mean, like I've said before, it's just like I can't really worry about people that don't accept me. Like I am like I kind of hate this about me, but at the same time it's kind of good. It's just I'm very good at, if one person just has a problem, then I just can cut them out quickly. And I just be
Right.
like, okay, well then this is not like we're not a good match then. If you're gonna just be rude to me, like then I can cut you out very quickly and move on with my life, which is horrible, and I hate that I'm like that. But at the same time, it's like I don't really have the time to deal with people that like don't accept me. Like that's just their own problem, and they think that, and I could really care less. Like it doesn't, unless it like super affects me, then I care. But that's like a very low amount.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I would probably say that I totally understand where you're coming from. Life's too short. You've got more things to worry about. But I would still, because like this has happened to me, you know, when someone just truly does not like me. I mean, maybe when I was in high school, I didn't really go the extra mile, but when I did my YouTube stuff and I made a video and I got criticized for it, I tried to make an effort to figure out as to why. Because if someone truly doesn't like me, I want to know why you feel that way. Is it just because you disagreed with me, which is pretty petty, if you ask me? But is it more than that? Why? Just tell me why. And I would think that in situations like yours or mine or anybody else's, that if someone just doesn't want to give you that answer, then you're absolutely right. Burn that bridge, burn that motherfucker to the ground.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, all right, guys. Well, that pretty much wraps everything up for the day. Alex, thank you so much for joining me today. This was such an enlightening
This was
conversation.
awesome. I loved it.
Yeah, this was absolutely better than I thought it would be. And I'm really hoping that everyone who watches when this video goes back up at 7 a.m., March 25th, that is Monday morning. That's tomorrow. Mark your calendars, everybody. This is going to be up for all the world to see for as long as it needs to be. I'm just hoping that you all can truly take something wonderful and important away from this video. And I'm very glad that I decided to do this with someone who I truly appreciate, respect, and trust. So once again, Alex, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you all for watching. And as always, I am Steve, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome, looking forward to another episode of Sunday Sit Down, where we tackle another great topic, but more importantly, as always, another great YouTuber to discuss it with. I will see you all in the next one. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. If you're new here and want to see more of what my channel has to offer, please click on the link to my last video, or hit that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all of my uploads. Content of all sorts is posted here quite often, so trust me, you do not want to fall behind. I will see you in the comments, and actions speak louder than words.